العالمين. السلام عليك يا ثار الله وابن ثاره والبتر الموتور. السلام عليك وعلى الأرواح التي حلت بفنائك. عليكم مني جميعا سلام الله أبدا ما بقيت وبقي الليل والنهار. يا أبا عبد الله، لقد عظمت الرزية وجلت المصيبة بك علينا وعلى جميع أهل الإسلام، وجلت وعظمت مصيبتك في السماوات على جميع أهل السماوات. فلعن الله أمة أسست أساس الظلم والجور عليكم أهل البيت، ولعن الله أمة دفعتكم عن مقامكم وأزالتكم عن مراتبكم التي رتبكم الله فيها، ولعن الله أمة قتلتكم، ولعن الله الممهدين لهم بالتمكين من قتالكم. برئت إلى الله وإليكم منهم ومن أشياعهم وأتباعهم وأوليائهم. يا أبا عبد الله، إني سلم لمن سالمكم وحرب لمن حاربكم إلى يوم القيامة. ولعن الله آل زياد وآل مروان، ولعن الله بني أمية قاتبة، ولعن الله ابن مرجان، ولعن الله عمر بن السعد، ولعن الله الشمرا، ولعن الله أمة أسرجت والجمت وتنقبت وتهيأت لقتالك. بأبي أنت وأمي لقد عظم مصابي لك، فأسأل الله الذي أكرم مقامك وأكرمني بك أن يرزقني طلب ثارك مع إمام منصور من أهل بيت محمد صلى الله عليه وآله. اللهم اجعلني عندك وجيها بالحسين عليه السلام في الدنيا والآخرة. يا أبا عبد الله، إني أتقرب إلى الله وإلى رسوله وإلى أمير المؤمنين وإلى فاطمة وإلى الحسن وإليك بموالاتك وبالبراءة ممن قاتلك ونسب لك الحرب، وبالبراءة ممن أسس أساس الظلم والجور عليكم. وأبرأ إلى الله وإلى رسوله ممن أسس أساس ذلك وبنى عليه بنيانه وجرى في ظلمه وجوره عليكم وعلى أشياعكم. برئت إلى الله وإليكم منهم وتقرب إلى الله ثم إليكم بموالاتكم وموالاة وليكم وبالبراءة من أعدائكم والناصبين لكم الحرب وبالبراءة من أشيائهم وأوليائهم. يا أبا عبد الله، إني سلم لمن سالمكم وحرب لمن حاربكم وولي لمن والاكم وعدو لمن عاداكم. فاسألوا الله الذي أكرمني بمعرفتكم ومعرفة أوليائكم ورزقني البراءة من أعدائكم أن يجعلني معكم في الدنيا والآخرة، وأن يثبت لي عندكم قدم صدق في الدنيا والآخرة، وأسأله يبلغني المقام المحمود الذي لكم عند الله، وأن يرزقني طلب ثار مع إمام مهدي ظاهر ناطق بالحق منكم، وأسأل الله بحقكم وبالشأن الذي لكم عنده أن يعطيني بمصابي بكم أفضل ما يعطي مصابا بمصيبة، يا لها مصيبة ما أعظمها وعظم رزيتها في الإسلام وفي جميع أهل السماوات والأرض. اللهم اجعلني في مقام هذا ممن تناله منك صلوات ورحمة ومغفرة. اللهم اجعل محياي محيا محمد وآل محمد، ومماتي ممات محمد وآل محمد. اللهم إن هذا يوم تبركت به بنو أمية وابن آكلة الأكباد اللعين ابن اللعين، على لسانك ولسان نبيك صلى الله عليه وآله، في كل موطن وموقف وقف فيه نبيك صلواتك عليه وآله. اللهم لعن أبا سفيان ومعاوية ابن أبي سفيان ويزيد بن معاوية عليهم منك اللعنة أبد الآبدين. وهذا يوم فرحت به آل زياد وآل مروان بقتلهم الحسين عليه السلام صلوات الله عليه. اللهم فضاعف عليهم اللعن منك والعذاب الأليم. اللهم إني أتقرب إليك في هذا اليوم وفي موقفي هذا وأيام حياتي بالبراءة منهم واللعنة عليهم وبالموالاة لنبيك وآل نبيك عليهم السلام. اللهم لعن أول ظالم ظلم حق محمد وآل محمد، وآخر تابع له على ذلك. اللهم لعن الإصابة التي جاهدت الحسين عليه السلام وشايعت وبايعت وتابعت على قتله. اللهم لعنهم جميعا. السلام عليك يا أبا عبد الله، وعلى الأرواح التي حلت بفنائك وأناخت برحلك، عليك مني سلام الله أبدا ما بقيت وبقي الليل والنهار، ولا جعل الله آخر العهد مني لزيارتك. السلام على الحسين وعلى علي بن الحسين وعلى أولاد الحسين وعلى أصحاب الحسين. اللهم خص أنت أول ظالم باللعن مني وأبدأ به أولا ثم الثاني ثم الثالث ثم الرابع. اللهم لعن يزيد بن معاوية خامسا، ولعن عبيد الله بن زياد وابن مرجان وعمر بن سعد وشمرا وآل أبي سفيان وآل زياد وآل مروان إلى يوم القيامة. اللهم لك الحمد حمد الشاكرين لك على مصابهم، الحمد لله على عظيم رزيتي. اللهم ارزقني شفاعة الحسين عليه السلام يوم الورود وثبت لي قدم الصدق عندك مع الحسين عليه السلام وأصحاب الحسين الذين بذلوا مهجهم دون الحسين عليه السلام. السلام عليكم يا ساداتي وموالي جميعا ورحمة الله وبركاته.
اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. Okay, give me 1 second. Sayyid John, just give me 1 second.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah, we can. Muhammad wa Ali Muhammad, salawat.
Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa Fatiha. فرزندوں کے لاشوں پہ یہ ماں کرتی تھی زاری، فرزندوں کے لاشوں پہ یہ ماں کرتی تھی زاری، اے آن محمد، اے آن محمد، صحرا بنا باندھے گئے دنیا میں میواری، اے آن محمد، اے آن محمد، دو لاش نظر آتے ہیں دو دلہن کے بدلے، دو لاش نظر آتے ہیں دو دلہن کے بدلے، ماں تم پہ ہو صدقے، کن آنکھوں سے اب دیکھوں میں حالت یہ تمہاری، اے آن محمد، فرزندوں کے لاشوں پہ یہ ماں کرتی تھی زاری، اے آن محمد، میں ماں ہوں میرے آگے جنازے ہیں تمہارے، کیا دل میرا مانے، میں ماں ہوں میرے آگے جنازے ہیں تمہارے، کیا دل میرا مانے، سر پیٹ کے کیوں کروں نہ گریا وہ زاری، سر پیٹ کے کیوں نہ کروں نہ گریا وہ زاری، اے آن محمد، فرزندوں کے لاشوں پہ یہ ماں کرتی تھی زاری، اے آن محمد، ماموں کا تو حق تم نے ادا کر دیا پیارو، پر یہ تو بتاؤ، ماموں کا تو حق تم نے ادا کر دیا پیارو، پر یہ تو بتاؤ کیا مانا تھی حقدار محبت میں تمہاری، اے اون محمد فرزندوں کے لاشوں پہ یہ ماں کرتی تھی زاری اے اون محمد ہائے یہی لاشوں پہ بکا کرتی تھی مادر صدقے گئی تم پر ہائے یہی لاشوں پہ بکا کرتی تھی مادر صدقے گئی تم پر تم دونوں نے اس وقت رکھی لاج ہماری تم دونوں نے اس وقت رکھی لاج ہماری اے اون محمد فرزندوں کے لاشوں پہ یہ ماں کرتی تھی زاری اے اون محمد صلوات اللہ محمد وعلی محمد
اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. بسم الله استغفر.
محمد وآل محمد صلوات.
اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد.
احساس رلاتا ہے زینب تیری غربت کا دم خوب برا بی بی بھائی کی محبت کا بیٹوں کو فدا کر کے شکرانہ بجا لائی بیٹوں کو فدا کر کے شکرانہ بجا لائی چلتا ہے پتہ اس سے زینب تیری عظمت کا پامال ہوا لاشا فرزند پیمبر کا پامال ہوا لاشا فرزند پیمبر کا امت نے دیا شاید یہ اجر رسالت کا بے جان تھا سکینہ نے پانی نہ چچا لائے بے جان تھا سکینہ نے پانی نہ چچا لائے احساس نہیں باقی اب پیاس کی شدت کا جھولے سے گرے اصغر کوہرام ہے خیمے میں جھولے سے گرے اصغر کوہرام ہے خیمے میں بچے کو خیال آیا بابا کی رفاقت کا دفنا چکا اصغر کو اب کوئی نہیں باقی دفنا چکا اصغر کو اب کوئی نہیں باقی اندازہ کرے کوئی شبیر کی حالت کا محمد وآل محمد صلوات
اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. Okay. Shaykh, are you ready? Okay. All right. Muhammad wa ali Muhammad salawat. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad.
سورة المباركة الفاتحة. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان اللعين الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين. الحمد لله الذي هدانا لهذا وما كنا لنهتدي لولا أن هدانا الله. لقد جاءت رسول ربنا بالحق. الصلاة والسلام على أشرف الأنبياء المرسلين خاتم النبيين سيدنا والنبينا ومولانا أبي القاسم المصطفى محمد وبآله الطيبين الطاهرين المعصومين المظلومين. وصل على صاحب الدعوة النبوية والصولة الحيدرية والإسمة الفاطمية والحلم الحسنية والشجاعة الحسينية والصبر السجادية وآثار الباقرية ومؤثر الصادقية وعلوم الكاظمية وحجج رضوية وجود التقوية والنقاوة النقوية والهيبة العسكرية والغيبة الإلهية والقائمة بالحق. اللهم عجل لوليك الفرج. رب اشرح لي صدري ويسر لي أمري واحلل عقدة من لساني يفقه قولي. أما بعد، فقد قال الله تبارك وتعالى في كتاب الكريم ومحكم كتاب المجيد وقوله الحق. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. يا أيتها النفس المطمئنة ارجعي إلى ربك راضية مرضية فادخلي في عبادي وادخلي جنتي. Many of us, understandably so, know Imam Hussein alayhi salam as the Hussein on the 10th of Muharram. Many of us, understandably so, know Imam Hussein alayhi salam as the Hussein on the day of Ashura. Many of us, understandably so, know Imam Hussein alayhi salam as the Hussein at the Battle of Karbala. However, who was Hussein before the 10th of Muharram? Who was Hussein before the day of Ashura? Who was Hussein before the Battle of Karbala? Before we start to attempt to answer this question, it is vital for us to understand and appreciate the reasons why we know Imam Hussein alayhi salam about the Hussein of the Karbala. You see, we need to understand and appreciate the Battle of Karbala, the day of Ashura, was an event that was foretold and spoken about by the Imams before the event took place. This was an event which was spoken about by the Holy Prophet of Islam even before this event took place, and therefore there is great importance of the event of the Battle of Karbala. At the same time, we see so many of qualities and traits and the skills of Imam Hussein Aba Abdullah being manifested on the day of Ashura. At the end of the day, Aba Abdullah was a generous individual. He was courageous, he was brave, he was generous, he was humble, he had humility, he had kindness, he had benevolence. However, what happened on the Battle of Karbala, what happened on the 10th of Muharram, was that all of these traits were manifested within Aba Abdullah on a single day. However, at the same time, the original question still stands. Who was Hussein before the tragedy of Karbala? Who was Hussein before the day of Ashura? Who was Hussein before the 10th of Muharram? And therefore the topic of discussion that I have chosen to title tonight's lecture, tonight's majlis, is to try and understand who Hussein was before the event of Karbala, and thereby titling it Social Lessons from the life of Aba Abdullah Imam Hussein alayhi salam. And in doing so, inshallah, we will discuss a few of his traits and try and understand it better, and inshallah try and apply it and reflect upon how we can apply it within our own lives. Now, when it comes to social aspects, at the end of the day, we here all are living within a society. For example, if we wish to source our own food, we wish to source our own education, we wish to source our own shelter, our own standard of living. Though this may not be impossible for an individual to do at an individual basis throughout society, it would, however, be a tremendous task to be able to get your own medicine, to be able to source all of the needs that you need for yourself, by yourself. However, what happens when we live in a society, all of these tasks are distributed within different members of the society. And therefore, we see when people combine all of their efforts together, when people combine all of their hard work together, it is when society therefore flourishes. At the same time, there are rights and responsibilities for when you live within a society. For example, Imam Sajjad within his Risalat al-Huquq has specified the rights when it comes to the rights of your neighbors, the rights of your companions, the rights of your friends, the rights of your family. So therefore, whilst we appreciate that living in a society is something that is quite useful, at the same time, there are a lot of roles and responsibilities that we must adhere to. And which is why this topic has been chosen, so that we are able to lead a better life within our society through the lens and the lessons that we may receive and derive from the life of Aba Abdullah, as he himself also interacted with different classes of people and different types of people within his own society. And thereby, we now begin our discussion. Arrogance is a state of mind where an individual feels superior to another individual. It is nothing but an imagination of an individual when he wishes to compare himself to another. This is where reality is taken away from the individual. Imam Amir al-Mu'mineen, with regards to arrogance, states that I am surprised, I am amazed at man who is arrogant. He starts off being an unclean drop. He ends up being a decomposed body, and in between, he is a good-for-nothing individual. And if we see within society, many of the vices are deep-rooted within the trait of arrogance. The opposite of arrogance is humbleness. It's humility. Imam Hussein, Aba Abdullah alayhi salam, was known for his humbleness. He was known for his humility, kindness, charity, love for the poor, and relationship with all types of people within his society. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala had bestowed upon him lofty morals. And Imam Hussein alayhi salam's morals were a mirror image of the morals of his father, Imam Ali ibn Abi Talib, and of course, Rahmatun lil Alameen, his grandfather, the Prophet of Islam. And therefore, let us start to discuss a little bit about his humility and his humbleness. One day, whilst Aba Abdullah was on his horse riding within the streets of Medina, he comes across a street where he sees on the other side there is a circle of beggars that have joined themselves, and they are now eating the food that they have collected, they had begged throughout the day. Upon seeing Aba Abdullah, Imam Hussein alayhi salam, these groups of beggars look up to Imam Hussein, they send salutation, they say salam. Imam Hussein cheerfully replies, and then they invite Aba Abdullah to sit down with them and join them in the food. Aba Abdullah affectionately, politely accepts their invitation, sits down with them, at the same time very lovingly explains to them that because he is from the family of the Holy Prophet, he is prohibited to eat anything that comes from sadaqah. The family of Ali Muhammad, the Ahlul Bayt, are forbidden. They're unable to eat anything that is sadaqah. However, he still sits with them. He talks to them very lovingly. At the same time, he says that now I have accepted your invitation, and now you must also accept my invitation. So Imam Hussein alayhi salam invites him to their own home, which the beggars cheerfully accept and willingly come with him. When Aba Abdullah invites them to their home, he provides food to them. He not only gives them food, but he also gifts them with clothes. At that point, he asks his wife Rabab to take out whatever saving that they had, and then he, whilst bidding farewell to them, also gives them the gift of cash, and thereby showing his lofty morals through the character of his grandfather and demonstrating complete humility and complete humbleness. You see, brothers and sisters, in our lives, we may come across people that are sometimes similar to us, sometimes they are slightly different to us. They may have the same background, some may have a different background, some may come from the same financial state that we do, and some may come from the from a different financial state from us. Now, realizing that we all have slightly different statuses, a question that I must ask myself, and a question that I invite you to ask and reflect upon yourself, is how would I usually react to people within my society? One of the prime examples of how Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wishes to interact with each other is, of course, in the principle of the ihram when we go to Hajj. At the end of the day, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has legislated that all men, for example, wear the same colored ihram, the same type of ihram, thereby rejecting any other social statuses. At the end of the day, the person that's closest to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is the person who is the most pious through his good actions. Similarly, at the end of the day, we're all going to go and be buried under the same pile of dirt. What matters to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is all our actions. At the end of the day, we are all created equally in front of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And this is what Abu Abdullah tries to demonstrate through his benevolence and through his humbleness and humility within the society. A similar incident has been recorded within traditions. Abu Abdullah, when he leaves Medina to go towards Kufa, in between he resides in Mecca for a short period of time. Whilst Imam Hussein is in Mecca, Abdullah bin Zubair wishes to seek an audience with the Imam. And so he goes to the place where Imam is residing and he tries to approach the Imam. However, at that point, he notices that the Imam is surrounded by a few people who are poverty-stricken. And now the Imam at the same time is spending a lot of time with them. He is speaking affectionately with them. He is speaking with kindness, with politeness. And Abdullah here is getting a little patient. He wishes to speak to the Imam as soon as these individuals depart. When they do finally depart, Abu Abdullah bin Zubair comes and approaches Imam. He says, "O son of the Messenger of Allah, why do you spend so much time with these individuals? You should have given them what they needed and then quickly bid them farewell." Imam looks at Abdullah. He states, "Abdullah bin Zubair, O son of Zubair, these individuals are grief-stricken. They wish to complain. They wish someone to listen to them. Their rulers don't listen to their complaints. So I was spending some time with them so that I may be able to lessen the burden of whatever is in their hearts. At the end of the day, O son of Zubair, I am the grandson of that messenger of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala who is known to be sat with the people of Sufa. He is known to be sat with the people of the homeless and destitutes of Medina all the way from Fajr until mid-morning. And he again would listen to the complaints and to the woes of the poverty-stricken individuals." SubhanAllah, this is the lofty morals of Abu Abdullah. A question that I must now ask myself at this juncture and invite you to do the same is, if we were present in Mecca, how would we have reacted to this? And what would be going through our mind? At the end of the day, our reaction and our thoughts on that reaction is going to be based on our thoughts and our mind and our heart at this point in time. Are we at the end of the day happy to speak to people from all walks of life? Or do we, for example, exclude other people? At the end of the day, we all sometimes inevitably have our own cliques, have our own groups that we usually speak to, that we usually rotate and revolve around. However, by doing this intentionally or unintentionally, willingly or unwillingly, do we push people away from us so that they don't feel as welcome within our own kind of social groups or our own social cliques? And sometimes what happens is, though people may have their go-to groups, their go-to circles, their go-to cliques, we must always endeavor that we don't make people feel unwelcome. Sometimes at the end of the day, it is a single smile that may make someone feel welcome. It may be a listening ear that may make someone feel welcomed. It may be a simple salam when we see them walking past within our community or otherwise, that may make us feel welcomed. Truth be told, aren't we all poor in our own different ways. For example, some are deprived of wealth, some are deprived of education, some are deprived of the peace and contentment, some are deprived of health. At the end of the day, we are all poor in some way or the other. And it is true within the society, whilst when we interact with each other, we realize that wealth is only a social status that we within our own society have given its importance and created this social stature. At the end of the day, we need to endeavor and try and follow in the footsteps of Aba Abdullah within our own groups, within our own cliques, within our own communities, to make sure that we welcome every individual. Abu Dhar narrates regarding the humbleness of the grandfather of Aba Abdullah. Abu Dhar narrates that once I saw Bilal and I saw Salman approaching the Prophet of Islam. When Salman al-Muhammadi approached the Holy Prophet, Salman fell at the feet of the Holy Prophet trying to kiss it, whilst at the same time the Holy Prophet endeavored, he tried for Salman to not kiss his feet. At that time he picked Salman up and he said, Salman, why do you wish to do those actions that the non-Arabs would perform for their emperors? At the end of the day, I am nothing but a servant amongst the servants of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. I eat what they eat. I sit where they sit. The grandfather of Aba Abdullah, the messenger of Allah, had such high, lofty morals. And no doubt, Imam Aba Abdullah al-Hussein has learned and molded his own character out of the character of Rasulullah, the Holy Prophet. In a beautiful tradition, in a beautiful hadith, states that there is no one that exhibits humility for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, that Allah grants him greatness and eminence. This is the humility that Aba Abdullah wishes to practice within his own society, and thereby inspiring us, influencing us to follow in his own footsteps. If we move a little forward after humility, if we try and look into the generosity, benevolence, kindness of Aba Abdullah al-Hussein, we see that this is a trait that again he has gained and inherited from none other than his grandfather. Lady Fatima, the apple of the eye of Aba Abdullah, goes to the apple of the eyes of Rasulullah, goes to the Holy Prophet at the time when he was seriously ill, and it is through this illness that he later passed away. Sayyida Fatima goes to the Holy Prophet and asks, O Prophet of Allah, within your attributes, I wish that you give as inheritance some of your attributes to my sons Hassan and Hussein. So the Holy Prophet responds to Hassan, he inherits my awe and my supremacy, and to Hussein, he inherits my generosity and valor. It is renowned that the generosity of Aba Abdullah al-Hussein was famous throughout his city, for he would host the guests in his house. He would feed those that needed food. He would clothe those that would need food. He would pay the debts of those that were indebted, and he would caress the widows. He would take care of the widows, the orphans, and those that were destitute. We all know the generosity of Aba Abdullah extended not only to those he knew, not only to those that he did not know, but it also extended to those individuals that he knew had ulterior motives. We all know the episode of Hur, when Hur was approaching Aba Abdullah al-Hussein with his own army. We all know what happened, that their army had depleted all of its sources of water, and the army of Hur was in the state of extreme thirst. Out of his generosity, his benevolence, his kindness, Aba Abdullah orders that not just Hur, not just his army, but his horses must also be quenched from their thirst to their full. There was a man by the name of Abdullah ibn Tan. No, his name was Ali bin Tan Mahrabi. Imam Hussein alayhi salam notices this is an elderly individual, Ali bin Tan Mahrabi, who violently shakes while he's trying to drink water. So Aba Abdullah himself, out of his generosity, would stand up and assist Ali bin Tan Mahrabi to drink water. Aba Abdullah knew who these individuals were and what their ulterior motives were, but still, out of his generosity, he feeds them, he quenches their thirst. This is one of the traits of Aba Abdullah. Aba Abdullah, in his own words, describes the generosity. He states the most generous of individuals is that individual that forgives whilst he has the power to take revenge. Let me narrate to you a beautiful story that illustrates just this trait of Aba Abdullah. Usama bin Zayd is an individual who, when he was ill, Aba Abdullah goes and visits him. Who is Usama bin Zayd? Usama bin Zayd, if you remember, is that individual when at the Battle of Mu'tah, the Prophet gave him the standard and made him the commander of the army of the Muslimin. And it was Usama bin Zayd that the Muslims of the time, the companions of the time, had complained, saying to Rasulullah, Usama bin Zayd is a young individual. Why do you give him to be the commander of the army? It is the same Usama after Rasulullah had made Amir al-Mu'mineen and had crowned him with the crown of Imamat. It was this Usama when after this event, when people would go towards him, Usama would say and practice ambiguity. He would sit on the fence. He wouldn't say that Amir al-Mu'mineen is the true heir of Rasulullah. He would say that and he would not give them the answer. This is the same Usama that didn't pay allegiance to the father of Aba Abdullah al-Hussein, Imam Ali alayhi salam. So now when Usama bin Zayd is ill, he is seriously ill, Imam Hussein goes, pays him a visit, and at that point Usama cries out loud. He says, "Oh, what a great sorrow." Aba Abdullah says, "Usama, what's happening to you? Why do you complain?" Usama says, "What's the great sorrow?" So Usama says that I have a debt of 60,000 dirhams that I haven't paid, and I feel that I may pass away and this debt may not be repaid. Aba Abdullah says, "Usama, don't worry, your debt is my responsibility." Usama says, "What if I pass away?" Imam Hussein says that I shall pay off your debt before you pass away. So Imam Hussein alayhi salam leaves the side of Usama. He goes to his home. He calls in all of the creditors of Usama and pays off all the debts of Usama. This is Imam Hussein alayhi salam, who, out of his generosity, not only forgave Usama, but he also paid off the debts of Usama bin Zayd. And of course, this is a lesson that we can take. And we understand that the generosity, the level of forgiveness that Aba Abdullah showed, demonstrated, and illustrated at the plains of Karbala was only one day where he manifested all of his attributes. A man by the name of Shu'aib bin Abdul Rahman, he states that after Imam Hussein alayhi salam was martyred, there were marks upon his shoulders. And when we inquired with Imam Sajjad said that these marks upon Imam Hussein alayhi salam were gathered after Imam Hussein alayhi salam would carry sacks and bags of food whilst trying to feed the poor, the orphan, and the widows. This itself speaks for itself to show how much Imam alayhi salam would have done for the poor, the orphan, the widow, for marks to be apparent even after he was martyred on the day of Ashura. Before I continue, please recite a very loud salawat on Muhammad and Ali Muhammad.
Allahumma salli ala Muhammad
Muhammad wa ali Muhammad.
Once, whilst Imam Hussein alayhi salam was walking, he came across a Muslim slave. He saw that this young man is feeding himself, but from his own food is also taking a morsel of food that he would feed a dog. He would take a bite and he would throw some more food to the dog. Imam Hussein alayhi salam, being impressed with this act of generosity by this young lad, by this young individual, goes to him and asks him, what is he, who is he, and what does he do? He says that I am a slave of a Jewish master. I am a sad individual. I am sad because my master makes me work very hard and I put in a lot of effort. However, I take joy, I take happiness feeding this dog, this creation of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, out of my own morsel. Imam, being impressed by his generosity, inquires who the master of this slave is. Upon finding the Jewish master, he wishes to purchase this slave for 200 ashrafi, or according to another tradition, 200 dirhams. And he says that I'd like to purchase the slave from you. Witnessing the generosity of Imam Hussein alayhi salam, the Jewish slave master says, Aba Abdullah, I gift you this slave free of charge. Imam Hussein alayhi salam then takes the slave and tells him, O slave, I free you, and here is the 200 ashrafi or 200 dirhams that I would now like to give you as a gift. Upon witnessing the generosity of this Jewish master, upon witnessing the generosity of this slave to this dog, and upon witnessing the generosity of Aba Abdullah al-Hussein, the wife of this Jewish slave master embraces Islam. And upon embracing so, she says that I forgive my husband the mahr, the dowry. And upon seeing and noticing and observing all of the generosity that's happening around him, the Jewish master also embraces Islam and thereby gifts the house to his wife. All of these acts of generosity happened because of an act of generosity displayed to a dog by a slave. You see, never should there be a time when we think that generosity is a small thing that we do to other people. Every act of generosity that we do within our society, within our community, can have a ripple effect within so many different people and can inspire and influence for them to do the same. For example, a smile can be an act of generosity. A salam could be an act of generosity. Helping someone, for example, find their first job can be act of generosity. Helping someone start a business can be act of generosity. Helping a local business, helping a local community member can be an act of generosity. And generosity doesn't necessarily have to be limited to generosity through wealth, for their generosity can be given through outside of wealth. There can be generosity of time and effort and action and servitude as well. At the end of the day, we don't need to be rich to be generous. As the famous Swahili saying goes, you don't need to be rich to be give, you just need to have a heart. And in a similar tradition, in similar spirit, the Holy Prophet ﷺ has said that give charity, even if it may be a small piece of date. And so after having discussed this, let me now try and tie the loose ends of the topics for tonight and present a summary and conclusion before we go towards the final part of our topic. Tonight, in the title, Social Lessons from the Life of Aba Abdullah al-Hussein, we've discussed that all of the traits that were demonstrated by Aba Abdullah were those that he possessed even before the event of Karbala. And thereby we've discussed the traits of humility, the traits of humbleness, the traits of generosity, benevolence, kindness, and politeness of Aba Abdullah within his own society, trying to take inspiration so that we may be able to apply within our own lives and society. At the end of the day, if we take this reflection a little bit further, the traits that Aba Abdullah demonstrated on the plains of Karbala were also traits that were demonstrated by his companions at their own levels. Aba Abdullah demonstrated those traits at an absolute perfect level. His companions also demonstrated those traits of bravery, courageousness, valor, generosity in their own ways. Hur, Habib, Zuhair, Muslim were amongst the companions of Aba Abdullah al-Hussein. Therefore, we, sitting within the majlis, sitting within the farsh of Aba Abdullah al-Hussein, can take inspiration from such companions, such that when we rise from the farsh of Aba Abdullah al-Hussein, when we stand from this majlis of Aba Abdullah al-Hussein, we also stand as Hur. We also stand as Habib, Zuhair, Muslim, trying to emulate those characteristics which they emulated from Aba Abdullah al-Hussein. And now, trying to present a final point When we look at the life of Abu Abdullah al-Hussein, he is the epitome when it comes to modeling the behavior of how a servant, how a abd of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala should be in front of his abd. So much so that we see even on the Battle of Karbala, Imam Hussein alayhi salam asks for an extra day from Umar ibn Sa'd so that he can continue with his worship and show his ubudiyat to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Imam Hussein alayhi salam loved worshipping Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and one of the du'as that illustrate the servitude, the worship of Abu Abdullah is a beautiful dua by the name of Dua Arafat. Dua Arafat is a beautiful and one of the most significant du'as from amongst the Ahlul Bayt. It is a dua in which Abu Abdullah demonstrates complete humility, complete humbleness. He demonstrates what it means to be a slave, a servant of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and that we as individuals are nothing but weak in the awe of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Bishr bin Asadi. Bishr al-Asadi narrates that it was the day of Arafah where Abu Abdullah comes out from his tent, joined with his Ahlul Bayt. He goes towards the left side of the Mount of Arafah. He faces towards the Holy Kaaba, and it is here he beseeches Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. He begs Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in a way that he would find beggars begging for food. And it is this dua where Imam Hussein alayhi salam states the most beautiful of lines. He states, "O Lord, what has he found? What has he found who has lost you? And what has he lost who has found you?" This dua of Arafah. If we want to understand the Hussein on the day of Ashura, let us understand Hussein on the day of Ashura through the dua of Arafah of Imam Hussein alayhi salam. Let me say a few lines of the dua of Arafah. Imam Hussein alayhi salam says, "Ya uddati fi shiddati, oh my means in my hardship. Ya sahibi fi wahdati, oh my companion in my loneliness. Ya ghiyathi fi kurbati, oh my relief in my agony. Ya waliyi fi ni'mati, oh my guardian in my blessing." Why do I mention this beautiful dua? Is today the day of Arafah? No, but let us try to understand the Hussein on the day of Ashura through these beautiful words. On the day of Ashura, brothers and sisters, when Imam Hussein alayhi salam picks up the bodies of his loved ones, picks up the arms of Abbas, picks up the body of Qasim, picks up the body of Aun and Muhammad, he knows that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is his means in every hardship. Ya uddati fi shiddati, oh my means in my hardship. When Abu Abdullah is all alone on the plains of Karbala, when he has also sacrificed his 6-month-old baby, he knows that Allah is his companion in his loneliness. Ya sahibi fi wahdati, oh my companion in my loneliness. When Abu Abdullah's Ali Akbar has been struck with a spear on his chest, when Abu Abdullah is experiencing agony, he's experiencing hardship, he knows that Allah is his relief in his hardship. Ya ghiyathi fi kurbati, oh my relief in my agony. The Imam on the day of Ashura knows that Allah is the guardian of all of his blessings. Thereby, when he leaves the tents, when he bids farewell to Sakina, he bids farewell to Sajjad, he bids farewell to his women folk, Imam Hussein alayhi salam knows that Allah is his guardian of his blessings. Ya Giyafi, Ya Wali fi ni'mati, oh guardian of my blessing. Which is why with a slave, with a servant like Abu Abdullah, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala calls out, Ya ayyatuha nafsul mutma'inna, O soul that is at rest, irji'i ila rabbika radiyatan maradiya, return to your Lord well pleased with him and well pleasing him. فَادْخُلِي فِي عِبَادِي, so enter amongst my servants. وَادْخُلِي جَنَّتِي, and enter upon my Jannah. Brothers and sisters, Imam Hussein alayhi salam would display his act of kindness to all types of people. Before even the event of Karbala transpired, after the battle of Nahrawan, there were a few prisoners of Amir al-Mu'mineen that were tied with ropes. Imam Abu Abdullah walks and he goes towards a few people. Amongst the people, one of them calls him, Ya Hussein, can you please come to me? The ropes that have been tied around my body are causing nervousness, they're causing anxiousness, they're causing a cause for worriness to me. Are you able to untie these ropes for me, loosen these ropes for me? Abu Abdullah goes to Amir al-Mu'mineen. He says, Father, I know that you would never tie any rope tight. However, do you allow me to untie this rope for this individual? Amir al-Mu'mineen looks at Abu Abdullah. He says, yes, Abu Abdullah, go untie the ropes. But may I ask you, Abu Abdullah, why do you wish to untie the ropes? Abu Abdullah says, Father, when someone asks something from me, I do not like to turn them away. When someone asks me something from me, I wish to grant them whatever they wish. So Abu Abdullah goes towards that prisoner. He says, bring forward your hand. Shimr bin Ziljoshin brings forward his hand. Abu Abdullah unties the hands of Shimr bin Ziljoshin. Ya Abu Abdullah, I ask you, what mercy did Shimr show you on the plains of Karbala? What mercy did Shimr show you on the day of Ashura? Ya Aba Abdullah, Ya Aba Abdullah, I ask you, tell me which mercy did Shimr show you when he sat on your chest on the day of the 10th? Tell me, O Aba Abdullah, which mercy was it that Shimr showed to you when he denied you and your children water? Ya Aba Abdullah, tell me which mercy was it that Shimr showed you when he tied your children and your womenfolk and Sajjad with ropes and chains. Brothers and sisters, mourners of Abu Abdullah al-Hussein, these are the great nights of mourning. These are the nights of weeping over the calamity of Abu Abdullah al-Hussein. Tonight, we speak of Awn and Muhammad. Tonight, we discuss the musibah of Awn and Muhammad. The masa'ib of Awn and Muhammad are as much as a masa'ib of Zainab as they are of her sons. Tonight, on a night like this, we send our salutations upon Zainab. Oh Zainab, accept our salams. Oh Zainab, the daughter of Ali and Fatima, accept our salams. Oh Zainab, the sister of Hussein, the sister of Abbas, accept our salams. Oh Zainab, the mother of Awn and Muhammad, accept our salams. It was the night of Ashura, where the mothers are there with their children, with their loved ones, trying to spend those final moments, trying to spend those final hours with their loved ones. Farwa sits with Qasim, Layla sits with her son Akbar, Zainab sits with her sons Awn and Muhammad. Rubab, not knowing what is to come the following day, sits with her own son Ali al-Asghar. And a night like this, when Zainab sits with Awn and Muhammad, Zainab teaches her son Awn and Muhammad. Zainab teaches how to be loyal to the Imam of your time. If you think Abbas is the epitome of loyalty, then it is Zainab that taught Abbas how to be loyal. What do I mean? When Zainab returns to Medina, Abdullah bin Ja'far, the husband of Zainab, comes to Zainab. He says, Zainab, I hear that you never cried for our sons, Awn and Muhammad. Is this true? Zainab says, yes. When I was in Karbala, I never cried for Awn and Muhammad. Abdullah says, oh, Zainab, why was it so that you never cried for our sons, Awn and Muhammad? Look at the loyalty of Zainab. Zainab says that when Awn and Muhammad were returned back to me, their bodies came back to me. I did not wish to cause embarrassment. I did not wish to cause shamefulness for my brother to have seen me sad, to have seen me crying, that I have sacrificed our own lineage towards the cause of Aba Abdullah, so that I don't cause any embarrassment. I withheld my tears. I never cried for Awn. I never cried for Muhammad. This is the loyalty that Zainab is now teaching her sons, Awn and Muhammad. Awn and Muhammad spend their final nights with their mothers. That day of Ashura finally dawns upon the plains of Karbala. One companion after the other is slain. Akbar goes, he is slain. The sons of Aqil go, they are also slain. Awn, Muhammad repeatedly go to Aba Abdullah. Oh, uncle, please give us permission. Permit us so that we also go and fight. Hussein every time turns his face away from Awn and Muhammad. He says, no, go back. I cannot permit you to go and fight. Awn and Muhammad, sad, worried, go back to Zainab. Zainab sees Awn. Zainab sees Muhammad. She says, my sons, my beloved sons, why have you not gone and sacrificed for your life for your uncle Hussein? Awn, Muhammad plead. They say, Aunt Zainab, Mother Zainab, please come with me. Plea on our behalf to our uncle. Zainab goes out of the tent. She goes to Aba Abdullah. Ya Akhi, my brother, please permit my sons. Please allow my sons to also sacrifice their lives for you. Aba Abdullah was now able to give permission to Awn and Muhammad. Awn and Muhammad bid farewell to their mother for the final time. Hussein and Abbas prepare Awn and Muhammad for the battlefield. They mount them upon their horse. This time Awn, Muhammad rush towards the battlefield. They fight valiantly, they fight braver, they fight through bravery. At the end of the day, Awn and Muhammad were the grandsons of Ja'far. Awn and Muhammad were the grandsons of Ali, Haydar. At the end of the day, however, brothers and sisters, let me remind you, mourners of Aba Abdullah, Awn and Muhammad were also thirsty. Awn and Muhammad were also hungry. A time comes where the enemies of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, they surround Awn and Muhammad from all four directions. Those that had swords strike Awn and Muhammad with swords. Those that had spears strike their spears. Those that had arrows strike their arrows. Those that couldn't find anything tried and finding stones, and they strike Awn and Muhammad with stones. The bodies of Awn, the bodies of Muhammad are wounded. They're completely injured. They're no longer to maintain their balance upon their horses. They call out, Wa Amma Adrikna, oh our uncle, come help us. Hussein rushes towards the battlefield. He comes at the body of Awn. He comes at the body of Muhammad. Narrations say that Awn still had a little bit of life still within him. He whispers something. Hussein listens closely. Awn says, uncle, make sure you tell our mother we never drank from the Furat. How could we drink when Aba Abdullah is thirsty? How could we drink when Ali al-Asghar is thirsty? Hussein picks up the bodies of his nephew, and uncle brings back the bodies of his nephews back to the tent. The woman folk start lamenting. The voices of Ya Aliya, Wa Muhammada, Wa Aliya are raised amongst the tents. However, Zainab comes. She looks at Hussein. She looks at Awn. She looks at Muhammad. Muhammad, but she never cries. Zainab never cries. A time comes when on the 11th of Muharram, Zainab departs from Karbala. She looks at the neck, she looks at the face of Aba Abdullah. She looks at the head of Aun. She looks at the head of Muhammad. She cries, but she cries, Wa Husayna, Wa Akbara, Wa Qasima. She never cries on Aun and Muhammad. A time comes, they reach Syria. She cries on Hussein. She cries on Akbar. She cries on Abbas, but never on Aun and Muhammad. These prisoners, they're finally released. The heads of the Shahada are given back to these prisoners. Zainab takes the head of Hussein. Kulthum takes the head of Abbas. Layla takes the head of Akbar. Farwa takes the head of Qasim. Rabab comes forward. She takes the small head of Ali al-Asghar. However, there are two heads that are now placed in a corner of the room. The womenfolk, the ladies of Syria, the ladies of Sham start talking amongst themselves. Is the mother of these two heads no longer alive? A time comes when Zainab raises her voice. She says, O woman of Sham, O woman folk of Syria, Zainab is still alive, but Zainab cries on Aba Abdullah al-Hussein. This kafila, this caravan of Zainab arrives back at Karbala. Zainab places her body at the grave of Aba Abdullah. She weeps, she laments, she cries for Aba Abdullah, but never does she cry for Aun and Muhammad. Brothers and sisters, mourners of Aba Abdullah al-Hussein, would you like to hear, would you like to listen when the first time was that Zainab cries for Aun and Muhammad? They say that when Zainab reaches Medina, Abdullah bin Ja'far narrates this. When I arrived at my house, I saw an old woman with her back bent. I asked, Ya Ammatallah, halaki min haja? O servant of God, do you have any haja? This old woman turns around. She looks at me. She says, Ya Ibn Am, O Abdullah, have you not recognized me? This is Zainab. Zainab enters the house. She goes to the rooms of Aun and Muhammad. What does she see? She sees the two mattresses of Aun. She sees the mattress of Muhammad. After all, Zainab is also a mother. She bursts into tears. She cries out, Oh my Aun, oh my Muhammad, Abdullah, give condolences to me for Aun and Muhammad. ألا لعنة الله على القوم الظالمين وسيعلم الذين ظلموا أي منقلب ينقلبون إنا لله وإنا إليه راجعون. مات يا حسين يا حسين
Ya Hussein,
Ya Hussein,
Ya Hussein.
Ya Hussein.
Zainab ne ro kar kaha, no Muhammad mere. Zainab ne ro kar kaha, no Muhammad mere. Mar gaye khume naha, no Muhammad mere. Zainab ne ro kar kaha, no Muhammad mere. Zainab ne ro kar kaha, O no Muhammad mere, mar gaye khume naha, O no Muhammad mere. Mamu pe sadke hue, tego se zakhmi hue, khume tarapte hue, O no Muhammad mere. Zainab ne ro kar kaha, O no
Muhammad mere. Zainab ne ro kar
Muhammad mere.
Mar gaye khume naha, no
Muhammad mere.
Biyana मैंने रचा दिल का ना मतलब हुआ रोती रही मैं यहाँ ओ नो मोहम्मद मेरे ज़ैनब ने रो
Muhammad mere.
ज़ैनब ने रो कर कहा ओ नो
Muhammad mere.
مر گئے خون میں نہا
محمد میرے
ہائے اجل نہ گئی موت تمہیں بھا گئی کس کی نظر کھا گئی او نو محمد میرے زینب نے رو کر کہا
محمد میرے
زینب نے رو کر کہا محمد
محمد
میرے مر گئے خون میں نہا او نو محمد میرے یا حسین یا حسین
یا حسین یا حسین مجھ پہ کیوں بند کرتے ہیں پانی یا محمد کا پیارا نہیں ہوں مجھ پہ کیوں بند کرتے ہو پانی کیا محمد کا پیارا نہیں ہوں مجھ پہ کیوں بند کرتے ہو پانی کلمہ گویا محمد کی شامی کیا میں مہمان آیا نہیں ہوں کیا میں زہرا کا جایا نہیں ہوں مجھ پہ کیوں بند کرتے ہو پانی کیا محمد کا پیارا مجھ پہ کیوں بند کرتے ہو پانی کیا محمد کا پیارا نہیں میرا بابا ہے مشکل کشا میری مادر بھی ہے سیدہ میرا بیٹا ہے زین العبا میرے نانا کا کلمہ پڑا جس کے سائے کو تم ڈھونڈتے ہو کیا میں اس مجھ پہ کیوں بند کرتے ہو پانی کیا محمد کا پیارا مجھ پہ کیوں بند کرتے ہو پانی کیا محمد کا پیارا نہیں میری گردن پہ خنجر چلے آگ لگتی ہے گر میں لگے بنت زہرا کی چادر چھینے ہاتھ دوں گا نہ اپنا تجھے ہاتھ میرا یہ دستے خدا ہے میں تو منکر خدا کا نہیں ہوں مجھ پہ کیوں بند کرتے ہو پانی کیا محمد کا پیارا نہیں مجھ پہ کیوں بند کرتے ہو پانی کیا محمد کا پیارا نہیں حق میں عباس کو دوں اگر نہر لے آئے وہ چھین کر کربلا ہوگی زر و زبر لاش تیرے گی ہر موج پر میں نہیں چاہتا جنگ کرنا فوج لڑنے کو لایا نہیں مجھ پہ کیوں بند کرتے ہو پانی کیا محمد کا پیارا نہیں ہوں مجھ پہ کیوں بند کرتے ہو پانی کیا محمد کا پیارا نہیں ہوں یا حسین یا حسین یا حسین یا حسین یا حسین
یا حسین
یا حسین
یا حسین
سورة المباركة الفاتحة
Excellent. Thank you. Okay, so that concludes our program for tonight, inshallah. So for tomorrow's program, inshallah, will also start at 8:30. And then just again, a couple of reminders. We do have our Ashura Tabarruk drive-through this Saturday from 4:30 to 6:30. So if you have signed up, please do make your way to the center for your pickup. And then inshallah, we'll be sending out the details for the Ashura Day program. We will have live Amal, inshallah, led by Uncle Amin Dala. Details will be forthcoming over the next day or so as we finalize the program. With that, let's recite Dua Shifa 5 times Amin Yujibu for those that are sick in our family and around the world. Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. Amma
يجيب المضطر إذا دعا ويكشف السوء أما يجيب المضطر إذا دعا ويكشف السوء أما يجيب المضطر إذا دعا ويكشف السوء أما
يجيب المضطر إذا دعاه ويكشف السوء أما يجيب المضطر إذا دعاه ويكشف السوء.
All right, we're going to have 2 young girls from our community, inshallah, do ziyarat, and then Allahumma, give me 1 second. All right, Summer, go ahead. You're good, Summer. Go ahead.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamu alayka ya Aba Abdullah. Assalamu alayka ya Ibna Rasulullah. Assalamu alayka ya Ibna Mu'minin wa Ibna Sayyidil Wasiyin. Assalamu alayka ya Ibna Fatimata Zahra. Sayyidati Nisa'il Alameen. Assalamu alaykum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Assalamu alayka ya Sahib al-Zaman. Assalamu alayka ya Khalifat al-Rahman. Assalamu alayka ya Sharik al-Quran. Assalamu alayka ya Maulana Sahib al-Asri wal-Zaman. Assalamu alaykum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Allahumma salli ala Muhammadin wa ala Muhammad.
MashaAllah.
Go ahead.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Allahumma qalli waliyaka hajjatna al-Hasan salawatuka alayhi wa ala bari fi hadha as-sawati kulli sa'aniya wa hafiza wa qaida wa nasira wa tanina wa aina hatta الزكاة وتمتيه فيها طويلا برحمتك يا أرحم الراحمين.
اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. MashaAllah.
That concludes our program for tonight. Wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.